Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Del Toro, building on this committee's prior shipbuilding investments, I'm advocating for additional funding for the frigate industrial base and workforce in fiscal year 2024. The ship will be a central part of the future fleet, and as a new class, will undoubtedly face workforce, supplier, and shipyard infrastructure challenges. Last year, Congress provided $50 million for the Frigate Industrial Base and Workforce Development Program. I want to thank you for noting your support of this funding during last year's hearing. First, can you share your thoughts on how the fiscal year 23 funding will be executed to benefit this program? And then secondly, please follow up with, because I believe a sustained and robust investment is required to continue supporting the ship's production ramp up, how do you see sustained industrial base funding helping the program?
Thank you, Senator. First, let me thank you for your commitment to ensuring that Constellation gets built on time and on track, and I'm pleased to report that she is on time and on track right now for delivery. And we want to make sure that we continue that record. And the industrial base investments are necessary. Most of the monies that I believe will be dedicated towards Constellation will go in the force of workforce development programs to try to help the shipyard recruit additional and train additional individuals in Wisconsin, to train them to be able to support an increasing need for that workforce in the shipyard itself. I think that'll be the best use of those monies. The shipyard itself has invested a lot in CapEx and has reinvested a lot of its own profits and its own capitalization as well too, to try to keep the frigate on track. So I'm hopeful that the monies in 23 are going to be better used in workforce development than in actual CapEx-like investments in the shipyard.
Okay, thank you. General Berger, the Marine Corps listed LPDs, that is the amphibious transport dock ships, as their #1 priority on their unfunded priority list. However, the Navy has halted its pursuit of the transport dock line, citing the program's growing costs. Can you explain why supporting the LPD project is important to the Marine Corps, and what the second and third order effects would be if the LPD project is not funded?
Senator, in my opening comments, I tried to highlight the operational and the statutory minimums, both mandated by Congress and what we see as the warfighting requirement. And that's a floor, not a ceiling. And it consists of 10 big decks, LHAs, LHDs, and 21 medium or smalls, LPDs. So that's the bare minimum. This budget proposes early decommissioning of 3 of those LSDs with no construction, no acquisition of an LPD. So from my role as defining what the requirements are and the statutory minimums of 31, there's no plan to get there. So from my perspective, I didn't see any other way than to put it on the unfunded list in order to reflect that there's no plan to get to the minimum requirements. If we don't have it, to your question, what's the risk? The risk is our inventory atrophies to a point where we cannot deter, can't campaign, can't respond. And as I tried to highlight, when we can't respond when we have to, then our allies and partners' trust goes down, and in all likelihood, the way the Chinese Navy is growing and they're expanding, they're liable to try to step in, and we can't afford that to happen. I would say the last part of this, of course, is maintenance, which is the #1 priority for the CNO for 4 straight years. And recovering that maintenance, making sure we have the fleet that we need that's ready, as he points out, is key also.
You've previously cited that the buy now or block buy acquisition strategy will mitigate costs by footing the bill up front. Can you explain why you think this will be an effective way to mitigate costs such as inflation, or if there are other methods to help mitigate those costs?
The CNO is better qualified to explain the variables here, but from my perspective, a predictable pattern of construction on what they call centers is key. key for parts, key for labor, and for LPDs, it's 2 years. So we have to have a battle rhythm, a cadence that allows them the predictability that they need. If we don't have that, then they can't hold the workforce, they can't keep the supply chain working, and it starts to tumble downhill.
Yeah, I note that I've run out of time, but maybe for the record, Admiral Gilday, I'd like to give you the opportunity to respond on the topic of LPDs, and feel free to submit that to the committee in writing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Graham.